Karen Bonifilio, Outer Realms, Inner Journeys. We have Greg Thompson again today. And I got to tell you, if you saw Greg in the first interview, this guy is fascinating. He seriously is. He blew me away. So now we're going to talk about something I don't know about. But let me tell you a little bit about him. He's an IBM, retired, I believe, IBM software engineer, and he's an empath. And I'm going to tell you, his life is just amazing. And we talked about the NDE, a near-death. He had 3 near-death experiences, and you can look at the previous video to see that. And you're going to learn about something new today that I don't even know about. So, Greg, I'm just going to let you take it away and start talking.
Okay, thank you, Karen. I like to talk about shared death experience.
Okay.
If you're not familiar with it, it's basically a situation where a loved one has passed, and usually there's somebody else in the room or in the building, whatever, with them at that time, and that past person communicates with the loved one or whatever. In this case, it's my mother who passed away, and she came to me after she died. So that's kind of what the story's about. All right. I'd like to also point out that my mother never, ever really got sick. Never, ever did. She just lived fine. And she did have a miscarriage when I was about 8 years old. I wouldn't consider that a disease.
No.
But she might get a cold, and it would be there for a day or two and disappear. So she was healthy. Therefore, she had no doctors. She had no reason to go to a doctor. I was very much the same way. I never really needed a doctor. So in July of 1974, she got a little cough. And didn't think much about it. Just it'll go away.
Yeah.
But it didn't. And she started getting a little more tired. And so in August of that year, here we are again, 3 or 4 weeks later, and she still got the cough, and she's still getting tired. So it seemed like she was going to have to go see somebody about it. So in September before, she decided to find a doctor. Now, we're talking pre-internet. Trying to find information those days, it usually would be found in the yellow pages of the phone book. Yeah, remember a phone book? Remember the yellow pages? If you do,
we're old. We are old, Greg. We are.
So the audience is probably going, "Oh, just skip that." Okay. Anyway, so it wasn't, of course, easy to find anything that way. And after talking to friends and such like that, nobody really had what she was looking for. So, but it turned out that there was a doctor's office between where she lived in her apartment and the grocery store she would go to.
Oh.
So she said, "Well, okay, let's go there." I said, "Okay, fine." I went with her, and she said, "No, she left me in the car. She said she wanted to go see the doctor by herself." I said, "Okay."
About how old were you at this time?
Oh my goodness, 1964?
I think it was 74, wasn't it?
74, I'm sorry.
Yeah, that's okay.
They all go together. Oh, hell with it.
That's okay, Greg. I'm sorry.
That's mid-20s.
Okay.
Yeah. Anyway, she went to see this doctor, and she came back out after about 10 minutes. And I thought, well, that was pretty fast. And she didn't say anything. She just got in the car and she started to drive away. And I said, "So what did he say? What happened?" She said, "I don't want to talk about it." I said, did he say something wrong, or did he do something?" She said, "He assumed I didn't know anything. I was a poor woman who needed help from a man." I said, "Oh, God." She said, "Yes." So she didn't want to go back there.
Okay.
A month went by, and she hadn't found another doctor, and she was getting worse. So she made an appointment to go back to see him again. I said, "I'm going in with you." She said, "Please do. I need some help there." I said, "Okay, fine." So we went in, made the appointment, went in, and when the receptionist opened the door to allow us to go into his office, we walked in, and we could not see him. There was so much cigarette smoke in the room that
Oh, Lord.
it was just cough, cough, cough.
Ugh.
And so we walk in, the receptionist closed the door behind us, and we're kind of going, oh boy.
A doctor.
And the doctor was talking to us, so we knew where he was, and we kind of walked forward and finally got to his desk, and there were 2 chairs. We sat down in them. He was smoking a cigarette at the time, okay, and he also had a lit cigarette in the ashtray. We were just like, this is a doctor?
Yeah, and I was around in 74, and we knew cigarettes weren't good then.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
And
Okay.
2 at the same time. And I thought, I kept looking around, is there somebody else in the room? But no, there wasn't. And he started his routine about, well, she's, you just don't understand. It's not really that hard. It's easy. And when he got done the first time around, he gave her a prescription for penicillin. And we were trying to figure that one out. So we asked that question, why penicillin? Well, he just gave her something because she's just a hypochondriac, and anything that she's just given would make her feel better. And I slammed my fist down on the desk and said, "You are wrong."
Good for you.
I felt like saying some cuss words, but I think my attitude was enough.
That surprises me about you, but I don't. I like it. I like it. You're sticking up for your mom.
Yeah, she was tired. Actually, quite frankly, she was tired too, so she wasn't tracking too well. And I said, "She's got a cough." He goes, "Yes." I said, "Have you thought maybe about doing an X-ray on her lungs? Maybe something will be found there." Well,
I'm sorry.
I don't know. What? Well, let's just do that, huh? We'll pretend that you know what you're doing.
Oh my gosh.
And he got upset about that, but he did. He took an X-ray of her lungs, and he said, "I'll get back to you when I get the report back from the labs." I said, "Okay, fine." So we left. My mother says, "Thank you." I'm sorry about that. I should have kept my cool. She said, "No. If I had the strength, I would have probably slapped him." Okay. So we went back home, and the weeks went by. Sometime in
Weeks
went by. Finally, the phone rang one day, and she answered it, and it was the doctor's office. And it was his receptionist that called to say that the doctor has set up an appointment for her with a specialist, and here's the date and time and location.
Wow.
And the conversation, and it's just like, what the heck does that mean?
Yes.
And of course, again, you didn't have the internet to go check on this doctor's name and find out anything, so we just went. I knew we were into something a little different here because the office was in a building where it was just doctors' offices, the whole thing. And each floor had doctors for different purposes.
Mm-hmm.
The 4th floor of the building, which is what we were going to, was for cancer patients. And I saw that, and I mentioned that to my mother. I said, "Why is the 4th floor listed as cancer patients?" And she goes, "I have no idea."
Mm-hmm.
So we went down the hall, got to the room, and went in, and his receptionist said, "Wait a minute." And then she got word from him that he was going to be a little late, so she led us into his office and said, "You can wait in here." And we walked into a room that had bright sunlight on one wall, which was right behind his desk. And we're sitting in front of the desk.
Can't see him.
And, well, he wasn't there. He was still, we were waiting for him to come up.
Oh, okay.
And it was just kind of like, well, this is a lot of light on the subject. And trying to get funny out of it. And he came in, apologized for being late.
Oh, good.
He was trying to get done with things, and he was a lot younger than the first doctor we saw. And he said, "Oh my God, the blinds are open." He said, "Oh, he went over and he turned the blinds.
Mm-hmm.
And as he was talking, he mentioned the word cancer. And I looked at my mother and mouthed at cancer, and she just stared. And I'm going, okay, this is not good. This is not good at all. We will know what it is. That's good, but cancer, no.
Yeah.
And so he turned around and looked at us and saw the looks on our face. He said,
Because you're shocked.
"Oh my God, your doctor did tell you why you're here, right?" And I just said, "Not a word." And he goes, "Okay, I'll deal with that later." He said,
Good.
"The cat's
Good.
out of the bag, so I'm going to have to tell you you have lung cancer." And he
Was
said,
your mom a smoker?
she was a smoker,
Okay.
but it had nothing to do with smoking.
Okay.
It's a rare form of lung cancer. Of course, let's go for the rare. And it only, as far as they knew, affected females. And the younger you are when you were diagnosed, the faster you will die. He said, for example, if you're 40 years old, you will have probably about maybe 6 weeks to live.
Wow.
If you were 60 years old and you were diagnosed, you would live the rest of your natural life without a problem. It only went after young. He said, since you are 49, and she just turned 49, in fact, it was her birthday we went, he said, you have 4 months to live.
Are you kidding?
No. He said, we have no cure for it. Surgery does not work on it. We can't do surgery on it because of where it's located in the throat and lungs.
Oh my gosh.
He said, we can do chemo. He said, I would tell you it would be great if you would be willing to donate time to do some studies with us to help those coming down the line understand maybe they'll have a better chance of survival. And he said, what I would be asking is that you would be willing to come into the hospital after chemotherapy, and then you stay overnight and make sure everything's okay, and then release the next morning, and you do that about every 2 or 3 weeks. And my mother said, yes. She didn't even wait. She said, yes, anything I can do to help others.
Oh, wow.
He said, okay, fine. He said, okay, fine. So that's what we did. Now, at that point in time, I had my own apartment and was about 10-minute drive from her apartment. And initially, during this period of time when she was ill, tired, this months of July, August, and then into September, she was still working. And it's really, you look back at things, you kind of go, was this pre-planned?
Yeah.
I had a job with a phone company. My mother had been there for 2 or 3 years, and back then, in the Ma Bell days, they liked to hire relatives and friends of people that worked there. It just seemed to be a family kind of thing to do. We both ended up working the same shift in the same building, in the same office, with the same manager.
Oh my goodness. That's crazy.
It was crazy.
Mm-hmm.
So we would carpool together. I just drive over to her house, and we'd drive in from there to our work on for the night. We worked second shift, 4 to midnight.
Yeah.
And so that was the routine before the diagnosis. After the diagnosis, my mother was still we were doing the same routine for about 2 or 3 weeks, and then my mother started getting a lot worse.
Yeah.
And so we had to do something different. And in those days, even nowadays, it's very difficult to get a registered nurse that comes to your house.
Oh, yeah.
Let alone stay there for a while. My mother recalled that she had a third cousin who was a registered nurse.
Oh.
And so she called up thinking maybe the cousin might have somebody that we could contact. Well, no, she said no, she was retired now, and she'd be willing to do it herself, to come over and stay there while I'm
Nice. Good.
So, but on the proviso, I mean, she would take the bus over but she was not going to drive. She was not going to stand on a street corner at midnight waiting for a bus.
No.
So she wanted me to drive her back home. I said, no problem, to do that. So that became our new routine.
Mm-hmm.
And it turned out to be fantastic because it was good therapy for my mother. She had somebody to talk to that, didn't know that well. It's kind of a distant, third cousin.
Yeah.
And so they had wonderful times to talk together and whatever. And if my mother got tired, she just went to sleep, and my cousin just stayed there. So that's the way things went. The doctor had said that when the time came, it would be obvious because she wouldn't be able to swallow.
Oh, gosh.
The cancer would go up her throat and cause damage there, and so she wouldn't be able to swallow anything.
Gosh.
So there's a solution for that, believe it or not, because others have had this problem. He prescribed liquid cocaine. And I'm going, I've never even heard of liquid cocaine. He said, it comes in a spray bottle.
Oh.
And you spray it in the back of your throat and numbs the back of the throat, and then you can eat or swallow.
Oh, interesting.
And so that's what we ended up doing. There's a whole story about just trying to get the liquid cocaine on a Friday night at 9 o'clock. Yeah, sure, all drugstores are open at that time. So anyway, so we got the prescription, and it sat there waiting. They also said that when that happened, that it was close to death time, and it could be 1 to 2 days maximum that she would live after that was identified. Sorry.
That's okay. No, don't apologize.
So anyway, the night came. Oh yeah, the doctor also said that to call him immediately after she was requesting it, and that he would make an appointment for her to come in the next morning for the last of her life. And he told that to her in her face, so she was aware. And so that night came, April 13th, 1975. So I gave her the cocaine. She sprayed it, and she took a bite and swallowed, and she smiled. She could eat. She could eat. And since cigarettes were not the problem, smoking was not the problem, by God, she was going to have a goddamn cigarette.
Like your mom.
And so she did. She had one, and then she said, well, that wasn't even fun. She couldn't enjoy it. So she had one cigarette. It was really close to, well, I called the doctor around 6 that night. So he said that she'd be coming in at 7 o'clock the next morning for the hospital. So we had about 12 hours before she needs some help. I went to my room I had moved into a second bedroom that she had in her apartment during all this, and I went to my room, and I put on some phonograph music every night when she was bedridden. We had a large collection of classical music, and she played piano, so did I. And so we put on some music every night, and then I turned it back off when it was done. I'd have some music before she was sleeping. And so I did it that night, and I got done with it, and I went back to my room, and I thought, no, this is not right. This is her last night here, and I have questions I want to ask.
God.
So I got up and knocked on the door, and she said, come in. And I opened it, and she was still sitting right where she had been before, and the TV was on, but turned the volume down, and she was just sitting there, waiting, I guess, to go. And I walked in, and I said, is it okay if we talk for a little while? She said, oh, I would love that. I would love that. I said, okay, fine. So I came in and sat down, and we started talking about, things, current frame, stuff like that. She said, and you must have some questions about your past, and family, and stuff like that. She said, it's an open book. I'll tell you exactly what I think about anybody. The thing. And I said, okay, fine, and we laughed. I said, but I do have a question, and I don't know how to really ask it. It's kind of hard to ask. And she said, go for it. I said, okay. So I didn't look at her. I looked away. When I was very, very young, and this is a sidestep story here. When I was very, very young, I have a memory. I was on the floor of a living room in a house I don't recognize, and I was playing with a little toy, and I was going like this with the toy. It was a wooden toy with little wheels on it, and somebody had carved the toy and stuff, and I was just playing with it and having a good time. And suddenly a voice behind me said, memorize the room. And I'm going, what? I didn't know what memorize meant. And obviously, whoever asked the question understood that. He said, remember where everything is in the room, where the furniture is, what's on the walls, what's on the floor, and colors. Colors are very important. Remember the colors, too.
Wow.
And so I did. I memorized the room. I won't go through the inventory. There's a lot of
No, don't. It's okay.
Chairs, tables, couches, whatever. And so I got done with it, and I go, well, why did I have to know that? And the response back was, because something's about to happen. The doorbell rang. My mother came running out from the bedroom down the hall. She had been, I think, sorting clothes or something. She came down, picked me up, put me in her arms, and went to the door, opened the door, and there was a man standing there in uniform. I recognized that uniform. There's a picture of my father in that uniform on a table in the living room.
Yeah.
My father was dead. I didn't really understand that at that time. And this man came and started talking to my mother and giving his condolences. And my mother tightened up real tight, held me really tight, super tight, and I tried to wiggle and I couldn't move. And they started a quiet conversation. He, most of the time, was talking. And I heard two words in there that sounded like they were important, dead and death. And I didn't know what to make of them.
Yeah.
And the time the conversation got over, I realized that Daddy's dead.
Oh.
That means he's not coming home. My mother closed the door, put me back down on the floor where I was, ran down the hallway into the bedroom and started crying. I told my mother that story that night in more detail than I just did here.
Yes.
And I was looking down. I didn't want to interrupt the thoughts because I had memorized this, and I didn't know how old I was or where we were.
Mm-hmm.
And when I looked at her, tears were rolling down her eyes. She said, I didn't know. How could I have known? You were so young. You were so young. How do you remember that? Why do you know that? I said, because I was told to memorize it. She said, you were? Well, who? I said, I don't know. And she said, well, yeah. And she said, when my father died, he died 6 months before I was born. And when he died, my mother got information about the death and knew that he had been in a plane accident. She didn't know the details. This guy knew the details.
Oh.
He actually was a hero, helping others. As the plane blew up, flying over the Sahara Desert, it was a bomber. So it blew really well.
Mm-hmm.
The only thing found of his body or whatever was a wedding ring, license, dog tags rather, and and a tooth.
A tooth?
That's all that was ever found of him.
Wow.
So that's what was buried later.
Wow.
I said, well, how old was I at that time? And where were we? She said, oh, we were in a housing project out on the Air Force Base in Kansas City. And she said she was getting away from her mother after I was born. Mother wanted to take over and raise me as opposed to her. And she didn't like that idea, and so she went back to where they had been before my father died, which was the Air Force Base. She had friends there. She thought that would be better. Only to find out that they were all getting married and having their own lives to live, and she was a widow with a baby.
Yeah.
So she didn't get in. And so she came back home crawling to her parents to stay with them.
Yeah, good.
So she said, you were there, you were about 5 or 6 months old at that time.
Oh my gosh.
So
Oh,
I have a feeling
so young.
that it was a spirit, one of my spirit guides who was talking to me before, telling me to memorize the room.
Yeah.
So anyway, we made it through that night. That I got my answer I wanted to know, and we talked through the rest of the night. 6 o'clock in the morning, it was time to get to the hospital by 7. I took her out to the car. I was willing to carry her. I mean, she weighed hardly anything now. She was just bones.
Yeah.
And bones. And but she insisted she was going to walk. She was going to walk. I said, well, hang on to my arm then. She said, okay, fine. And she walked out to the car. It had gotten cold that night. There was ice on the windshields and everything. So I got her in the car. I chiseled off the ice, and we drove to the hospital. The hospital, Providence, doesn't exist in the same location it was back then. It was in northwest Portland at the time, or West Portland. We got there, and there was a long sidewalk to get into the front door of the hospital. And so I got out of the car and went around and said, I'll go get a wheelchair. And no, I can walk. And I said, I don't think so. And she said, yes, I'm going to walk it.
Stubborn.
Yes, very stubborn. And so, again, she held onto my arm. We started to walk, but she only got like 1 step or 2 steps, and she fell. And I grabbed her before she hit the ground. And then she realized that she didn't have the strength to do that. At that moment in time, the swivel door to the hospital switched around, and the nurse came out with a wheelbarrow. Wheelchair. Came out with a wheelchair. And you the Thompsons? And I said, yes, we are. She said, stay right there. And she came running down and put my mother into the wheelchair and into the building. I had to go park the car in the garage and then go in and fill out the registration. By the time I got to the cancer ward, found her unit, she was in a comatose state.
She was.
Induced. And they said, yeah, she was screaming and yelling really loud when she got into the room. Not before the room, but once she got into the room. And so they gave her some medication, and she would never come out of the room. And so I went back home. I think I went to work first, and then I went home. And by that point in time, it was 2:30 in the morning on the 15th of April. And I was just dead tired, having not slept the night before. So I laid down in bed and fell asleep. And some time went by. Again, we started now getting into spiritual and physical, so verbiage doesn't really work the same. Let's keep it in order. I could feel an atmosphere change in the room. All of a sudden, there was this sudden, really feeling. My spirit guides were laughing. Stop it. So anyway, they feel the joy and the love coming out in the room. And it was kind of building, and it was building, and it was building up, and it was building up, and then suddenly my mother appeared. And she was like right next to me. All right. I was lying in bed on my left side. She was on my right side. And she said, "I'm free! I'm free of that wretched voice, that wretched body. I'm free!" Oh, and she was so happy. And I hadn't felt or heard her that happy in probably a year. And it just, I go, "Whoa."
Wow.
And she said, "They said I could stop by and say goodbye to you." And I said, "Okay." And it dawned on me, I'm seeing two spirits floating around her.
Oh,
All right.
good. They let her come.
Yeah. And so the funny thing about it was she was right against me, and they were able to float between us as we went around her. And I'm sitting there going, "How is that done?" And I go, "Dumb, dumb, dumb, dumb." Try to explain the spiritual world to a physical world.
Yes.
You can't do that. It doesn't work.
Now, Greg, was she solid or was she kind of not? Or how did she appear to you?
I could not see her. I could not see them. I could feel them.
Oh, I see. Yeah.
Okay.
Wow.
So, yeah, there was no physical in it. I listened to her. She said she wanted to talk to me and let me know that she thought she was very proud of me, that I had a job. I've had the job for over a year now. I had my own place to live. I had, from the job perspective, a good chance for a future, which I did. I got promoted about once a year, all through, not all 43 years, but certainly about 35 of them or so.
Yeah.
But anyway, she was very proud of me, and her only regret was that she wouldn't have any grandchildren she could see. I said, "Well, you found me."
And I was a good son.
Yeah. She laughed. So we had a little bit of time to talk about a few things, and she said, "Well, I'm being told I have to go now." I said, "Okay." And she said, "Okay." And she said, "I love you." And I said, "I love you." And she started to move away. And I said, "Wait." And she said, "What?" I said, "May I go with you for a little while? Obviously, I can't go all the way, nor do I want to, but can I go with you for a little bit?" She said, "I don't know. I'll have to ask that." So she turned away from me. Again, can't see her, and I can't see them. And she turned back and she said, "Yes, it's okay, but I'm at a short distance." I said, "Okay, fine." So
Oh, gosh.
I body and I I flowed with her up. And again, the up routine, right above her is what she was seeing. I could not see that. That was for her, not for me. And I understood that. And then she said, "Please go back and talk to the nurses for me." I said, "What do you want?" She said, "I want you to let them know I really appreciate what they did for her."
Good.
They treated her with respect.
Mm-hmm.
They treated her as if she was just slightly sick. If they had to move an arm for some reason, or for example, they would tell her before they move it, and then they would move it and say, "I hope that didn't hurt. I hope that didn't hurt."
No.
And they do that with medications when they gave her through a needle or whatever. They were very kind, considerate, loving, caring, unconditional love. And she said that made it possible for her to leave.
God.
She said before that, she didn't want to leave. She wanted to stay. She wanted to stay. She wanted to see me and get well. But their consistent loving and caring soothed her.
Wow.
And she said, otherwise she never would have been able to go. And she really, really appreciated it. I said, "I'll let them know." She said, "Thank you." She said, "I have to go now. I love you." And she left.
It's beautiful.
I woke up and I looked at the time. It was 5:17 in the morning. I knew that the nurses went by every 15 minutes. And I thought, what are the chances they'd be on a quarter hour, And so I went ahead and got a shower real fast, got cleaned up, got putting on my clothes when the phone rang. And it was a nurse telling me.
Yeah.
But the Oh, there's more. The nurse was having trouble saying anything. She introduced herself,
Yeah.
and then she was kind of stumbling over what she was going to say next, like there was a prepared script for her to say.
Yeah.
And she kind of started it, and then she started to cry, and then she'd try a little bit more, and she'd sob, and a little bit more. And I said, "It's okay. I know she died. But I haven't told you." And I said, "I know, but she came to see me." "She came to see you?" And she cried. And I ended up calming her down for at least the next 5 minutes. It was her first night in the death ward. That's what they called it when they weren't talking to the patients and the loved ones, the death ward. Because every patient that came in, their purpose there was to leave.
It's still a horrible word to name something.
Yeah, and when I was talking to the nurses the next day about the nurse that had the problem, I said, I really appreciate that she was trying so hard. I hope she makes it. She said they all have a problem the first day. It's not normal to do that kind of thing. And she said, "Yeah, fine." It turned out to be okay. I have to continue a little bit further. That was not the last time I saw her or felt her.
And she's visited you?
She's visited, and the next time was about 6 weeks later. This was April 15th, tax day. So mean to me every year.
She wants to make sure you pay your taxes.
Yes.
Sorry.
So anyway, but Memorial Day comes soon after that.
Yeah.
And my mother every year took me with her to see my father's grave.
Oh.
There wasn't anything in it per se.
Yeah.
And my stepfather drove us there. I didn't have the appreciation at the time, but when I look back on it, I really, really realized that he loved my mother deeply.
Mm-hmm.
He came on the scene about 2 years, when I was about 2 years old. And he was a good man.
Good man.
But, so anyway.
Wow, Craig.
I went there and I took some flowers and I made a vow to myself, this is the only time I'm coming back.
Oh.
Because I don't need to go to a place to feel
right.
My mother or my whatever. I can.
I understand.
So I don't need to go to a place. So I went there that time, though, out of respect for.
Yeah.
And I knelt down in front of her grave and told her intimate things, I loved her and such. And I got up and I was ready to leave, and I took one step and I looked around, and then it dawned on me. For the first time coming there were 2 graves that were flowers on them. The Thompson family showed up in big time. I mean, I have something like 20 cousins, so they're uncles and aunts and whatever. That side of the family is huge. And they were there. And they had basically made 2 gardens out of all the flowers put there, and I had not paid much attention to that. And then it dawned on me, I'm never coming back to see this again. And I thought, I need to do something. So I knelt down between the 2 graves. And I put my left hand on my mother's grave, and I put my right hand on my father's grave. And I wished them in love and peace, wherever they may be. And I thought, well, I wonder if I can ask her a question. So I asked the question, do you 2 ever see each other? And behind me, I got the answer, no, but this is a special occasion.
Gosh.
That's when I realized this is the only time that we're together. Period. Mother, father,
son. Oh my gosh.
In a morbid way to be, but that's family.
Oh, wow.
And I never went back again. He periodically would come to me, maybe once every other month or so like that. And her approach was not unlike my spirit guides. With my spirit guides, I get a flush on my right side of my face. when I say, okay, even like now, when I start talking about them, they come by and this little cool air just kind of blows by.
Mm-hmm.
And with her, it was the same thing, a cool air, but I could smell her perfume. So I knew it was her as opposed to my spirit guides. And
I bet you found that comforting too.
I did, even a year later.
Yeah.
Eventually, it weaned away, and I still get my spirit guides, but yeah, she doesn't show up anymore. And that's okay. That's okay.
Craig, oh my gosh. Oh, I cannot believe the experiences you've had.
Yeah, to me it's normal, but
No. And I experience stuff and it's not normal, and yours is definitely not normal.
Yeah.
Would you please show, and we'll put links to your book, but will you show our audience the book that you have? We forgot to do that the first time.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, my gosh.
Let's see, I don't know if that works or not.
No, a little more. Living with My Spirit Guides, Greg Thompson.
Yep.
Gosh, you guys, you got to get this book. I tell you what, I'm going to interview Greg. You can put it down now. Greg has one more fascinating interview coming up. I'm going to get that book before then. Oh my gosh. I had no clue when I was introduced to him what I was going to experience.
Oh.
And I feel so blessed, and I'm so glad, because I know that you were nervous to come on the channel and to be interviewed, but I'm so glad you did, and you could share your message with everyone. I think it's so important for people to hear. And I bet you there's a lot of people out there feeling you in their hearts, and some tears coming down their cheeks too.
Yeah, I got one other thing I'd like to say.
Okay, of course.
If you're interested in shared death experiences, I would recommend going to a website called Shared Crossings.
Shared what?
Shared Crossings Project
Okay.
by William Peters, who founded it, and it's completely about shared death experiences.
Okay, and Greg, send me that link so I can put it on the bottom of the video too.
I will do that.
Okay, great.
Fantastic. When I told him the story, I was one of his first people that he interviewed, and he had never had one where a loved one, a spirit had, when the soul left the body, it's usually the loved one was right there in the same room, and everything.
Yes, yeah, not in someplace else.
In my situation,
Exactly.
my bedroom was on the west side, and they are on the east side, and they were on the hospital on the west side.
Incredible, just incredible.
Okay.
Well, Greg, I want to thank you for coming on the channel, and I have no idea what you're going to tell me next time. I have no idea, but I feel very blessed that our paths have crossed. So thank you so much.
Thank you.
Okay.